Good evening and welcome to the Ogden City Council Ogden City Redevelopment Agency meeting for Tuesday, October 8th, 2013. Let the roll call reflect that all board members are present. We'll now have Vice Chair Garner lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would the audience please rise and repeat after me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now have a moment of silence. Thank you.
We do notice there's a few people here from the public, so, with respect, I will make a motion to amend the agenda and just move public comments next. And so I'd like to make that motion just to move the public comments to the next item on the agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion to, amend the agenda and move public comments now, or to next on the agenda from Vice Chair Garner and a second from Board Member Heyer. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. So we will now accept public comments. This is an opportunity to address the board regarding your concerns or ideas for the Ogden Redevelopment Agency. Any takers? Seeing none? Okay. Then next on the agenda is consideration of adjourning into a closed executive session pursuant to the provisions set forth in the agenda. Mr. Stratford.
Chair Blair, I find that the purpose of a closed executive session is allowed as provided on the agenda.
Chair Blair, I would make a motion that we move into a closed executive session.
I second it.
We have a motion to adjourn into a closed executive session from Board Member Heyer and a second from Board Member Stevens. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Gochner?
Aye.
Board Member Heyer?
Aye.
Board Member Stevens?
Aye.
Board Member Van Hoosier? Board Member Wicks?
Aye.
Vice Chair Garner?
Aye.
Chair Blair?
Aye, that passes. And then we will come back for reports from the administration. Welcome back. Next up is reports from administration. Mr. Cooper. I'm guessing.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. It's my pleasure to present to you the proposed resolution 2013-20 approving the terms and conditions of a participation and incentive agreement between the agency and Tower View LLC for the development of a mixed-use property approximately 23rd and Washington. Let me begin by giving you a little bit of background on the location. You're most likely very familiar with this site. Predates me, but I believe it's the site of the old Wolf store. I've been in that parking structure, and there's some scary remnants of that store. But the parcel does go from Washington all the way back to, I believe that's Ogden. And it comes in a little bit into this alleyway here. It abuts the Tribe building there, and it would encompass all of the parking structure on both sides and the right-of-way / alleyway that's there now. So the proposed project would look at demolishing both parking structure and abandoning that right-of-way that splits the two, and would go essentially from the frontage of Washington and all the way back to the back road there, which is reflected here in this site plan. So again, Washington is here, 23rd, and this would be the road. This would be the alley that previously would have gone this way through here, but would be vacated up to this point, and it's being proposed for fire safety access and also access for other vehicles, delivery vehicles, business folks that work on Washington, and also Rocky Mountain Power. It's being proposed that there would be a 90-foot turnaround there to handle a standard fire truck and some other of the delivery trucks. You'll notice that the footprint is kind of in an upside-down E, or a lopsided E. These areas here would constitute an open space for the units. A lot of the units have balconies. This would be an elevation view there. So the courtyards would be inside, more on these areas there. But most, if not all, of the units, I believe all of them, would have balconies facing either all four sides of the building, north, south, east, and west. This area here constitutes the retail portion, so there's 4,000 square feet of retail on the bottom floor. If you go back to that site plan, that area would happen here, fronting Washington. You'd be able to access the retail from parking, which would be the access would be located there off of 23rd, similar to where the access is now, going into the surface parking. So you'd be able to park there and access the retailers from the back. You'd also have Washington parking, access the retailers from the front. So we feel that it's a very good combination of both residential and commercial. There's not a whole lot of other opportunities there for commercial just because of the way that 23rd changes grade heavily as it goes to the east. So Washington is really the best opportunity for the retail, and the parking works. And so it presents a nice, the term is sometimes used highest and best use. The lot is very deep, it's not very wide, so it's deep and narrow, so it doesn't really present itself very well for a commercial, entirely a solely commercial product, location. So by having the commercial residential portion on the front, and then as the building goes east and changes elevation, having it residential, that really is the highest and best use for the site that we believe. Here's a rooftop view, again, kind of looking northeast. You can see where the courtyards would be here and here. You'd have an elevator which would then give you access to a rooftop. I believe this is an Olympic-sized pool.
No.
It's a swim spa.
We were just hoping. Like Caitlin.
Assume the sale, but it didn't work. It does look big. However, even if it was a jacuzzi, it would be one of the very, if not the only, rooftop swimming facility, or bathing, not bathing, but aquatic facility that we would have. So I think it's going to be an amenity for the building. I think it'll be one of those perks that draw some renters, and it'll be very good for views of the temple and of the junction and those type of things. So that's exciting, something we don't have already. This is just a concept drawing of the elevation. I believe that the elevation is probably better presented here, so I'll leave this up. So Mr. Cokerhans and IDG Horizon, which is represented in this project as Towerview LLC, approached the RDA, and we discussed this project, the need for this project in our market, what types of objectives that we would have as an agency for something like this in terms of quality and accessibility and amenities. And so in that discussion, we were able to work out an agreement where we would propose to the board an incentive of $1 million for the project, which would happen over the term of the project area. This project would be in the East Washington URA, which was just approved in 2010 and has a sunset date of 2030. So the developer in this agreement before you tonight is proposing 100% of the increment that's generated from this project specifically, to the tune of an estimated $1 million over the period of that term that I just mentioned, immediately to 2030. There are no other terms from the RDA or incentives. There are some, this is post-performance, so in order to be eligible for that incentive, you would obviously have to get the building approved in essentially the same form and substance that is conceived in the agreement, which is what you see before you. This has been given to Greg Montgomery and the planning staff, and was received well with some minor changes. They would like to see some changes on this wall here facing 23rd. It's a fairly stark wall with not a lot of appeal to it, so there might be some changes here. There might be minor changes on how the storefronts are presented, but all in all, the building was well received, and so we expect that the developer would develop it in such a way that's being presented here. So again, post-performance, a $1 million incentive over the term of the RDA period, which equals 100% of what the developer generates from this project. Currently, on this, in its present condition, this is an older picture here, but if you looked at the site now, you'd see that this property has been improved somewhat to the tune of about 41 striped parking stalls. In our earlier negotiations, we worked with the developer to try to retain those public parking stalls inside of the building on that first floor that I showed you. And it just wasn't working out economically with the limited amount of incentive that we had from tax increment versus the cost of building those stalls. So it was decided at that point, for the sake of the project, to look elsewhere to replace these 41 stalls that currently exist. So there will be stalls here that are publicly accessible for the retail. Those would be first come, first serve, but the majority of the stalls that would be in the building would be designated for the tenants of the building only, other than those few that I just mentioned for retail. So we've been working to try to relocate or reconfigure some of these parking stalls that I think citizens and business owners along the street have become accustomed to over the last 18 months. We're looking at some options further east up the road. The county, we've approached the county, and there's quite a few parking stalls adjacent to the health building and also the county building to the south. And those are all actually public stalls, publicly accessible. There's no enforcement, there's no badging, there's no payment. They're first come, first serve. So that's an appealing option for us, and we've worked out some expectations with the county up to this point. But we will, with the onset of this and approval of this project, we will lose the majority of the stalls that exist now. The property owner or the developer has approached most of the business owners along Washington here, and in doing so, they've been able to work out some of the right-of-way concerns that exist along that right-of-way that feeds the backs of these buildings. And also they've been able to work out this parking issue, the fact that this parking is likely to go away if the building is approved and built. So it seems that everyone is okay with that. There is 128 units in this building, so that can mean up to 250 to 300 people living at this location. So I think the business owners are very excited to see that kind of density immediately in the immediate proximity to their businesses. And the trade-off of that versus losing a few parking stalls, I think, is appealing to them. So that's one of the same reasons that this project is appealing to staff, is the fact that it's right across the street from the junction, and this would be a serious boon in our justification for additional commercial development. It's this vicious circle. Retailers need houses, and houses want to locate next to services, and so you continue this vicious counterproductive thought process, and this project is going to kind of cut that and bring a bunch of folks downtown, which will then be more appealing to retailers as we recruit them. As mentioned before, there has been a market study conducted by the developer, and in doing so, it has reaffirmed their hunch in terms of the market that exists here for this type of product. It does differ from other products that currently exist in the marketplace and will come online with some other projects that have been previously approved, which the developer is aware of. So all in all, it's going to be a tremendous addition to not only the downtown, but a huge shot in the arm for the junction and the strategic vision of bringing folks to live and work and recreate in our downtown area. So that's the summary of the project, and as staff, we recommend that you approve Resolution 2013-20, and I'll take any questions, please.
In our work session, you mentioned that this was a $15 million project, is that correct?
Right, construction acquisition is estimated to be $15 million, which is what we use to derive the tax increment incentive.
And this may be a little early, but do you know what commercial properties would be going into that area? What stores would be locating in this area?
As a city, we don't have any potential takers. I don't know if Larry's even thought that far down the road yet. 4,000 feet is not a lot of space, but it is complementary to what would be on the other side. I think they would work well together with what's available at the junction. But specifically to your question, no, there's no one identified for that location yet. Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now accept public comment on the East Washington Urban Renewal Area. Seeing none. Any further discussion from council members or from board members?
There's no further discussion. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we adopt proposed resolution 2013-20.
Second that.
We have a motion from Board Member Gochner to adopt proposed resolution 2013-20 and a second from Vice Chair Garner. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Heyer.
Aye.
Board Member Stevens.
Aye.
Board Member Van Hoosier. Aye. Board Member Wicks. Aye. Board Member Gochner.
Aye.
Vice Chair Garner.
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes. We're gonna have to Next up is comments from the RDA Executive Director
I think it's time. Thank you.
and comments from other board members.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second it.
We have a motion from Board Member Wicks to adjourn and a second from Board Member Van Hoosier. This is a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Just as a reminder, there is a City Council work session to be held in the council workroom immediately following this meeting.